Hi, welcome back to Twang. I'm Dave, day 2 of the 14-day challenge to improve our basic soloing skills. Wow, a great turnout for that first one. So stoked on this. This is going to be so much fun. And love reading all the comments, seeing all the new folks popping up, and just really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Try to do it in each session if you can, because it helps the channel, but most importantly, it just helps this community become more cohesive. And here's a great example of how that pays off. A couple folks left comments pointing out to me that there was a mistake on one of the diagrams, possibly two of them, because they were both kind of the same thing, um, uh, different labels of the same images. Yesterday, I don't think it threw too many people off because if you saw yesterday's day 1, if you didn't, good place to start. Just saying. Um, we did we talked about major triads the whole time, and we used one chord for that discussion and demonstration. It was A major triad, the root, third, and fifth of an A major chord. So the note in question on the diagram was the seventh. So, it still needs to be mentioned, pointed out that it's incorrect on there. But I don't want to make a huge deal out of it because if it didn't distract you, then great. But thanks to those that, gave me that information. There's not a whole lot I can do with it once something's put on YouTube unless you remove the whole video and stuff. Doesn't seem like that would be necessary. But just wanted to mention that. And here's how we can make, lemonade out of that. Without getting into a big theory thing here at the beginning. But when you're just dealing with the triads, those triads can be contextualized. They can be inside the framework of a number of different types of scales or modes, sometimes we call them. We're not going there today, but we're going to get there. And so when I'm making these materials and things, sometimes I'm thinking, oh, there's going to be a flat seventh eventually over this chord, or a major seventh or something, or whatever. Either way, it needs to be correctly presented. But when I was just focusing on triads, it slipped by me very easily because there's no seventh in a triad, right? So, that being said, it's kind of a little bit of a foreshadowing of how some of these scales and modes and things work. But we don't want to take all that on all at once. Let's stick with triads. And today we're going to add a minor triad. We're going to do it off of a different root, okay? Just real quick, when you're practicing, there wouldn't be anything wrong, bad, about practicing some A major triads and then practicing some A minor ones. And in some tunes or musical compositions, that would actually occur in progression, right? Meaning it would change from an A major chord to an A minor chord. But not that often, right? So what I was trying to do on the twang is, do these two, and if you've watched the channel before, do these 2 or 3 chord loops and things, um, backing tracks and stuff that we play over, right? And so today, to look at the minor triad, we're going to do it off of E. And, it just so happens that for any number of reasons that we're not really going to worry about today, those 2 chords aren't bad together or side by side or in a continuous alternating between those two, right? And we're today, at the end of this, we're going to put together, our first kind of progression, meaning we're going to change the chords, okay? So we're not going to do a lot of review over the A major triad either today. So that's all in day 1, okay? Just very briefly. Okay, that's kind of the pathways or the territory that we covered there. All right. Um, E minor. Okay. Now we contextualize that major triad for the A is taking it out of the A major scale. It could also come out of an A mixolydian scale. Just saying, right? We'll get to that in a couple of days here. Because it only includes the root thirds and the fifth. And some of those other notes in the 7-note scale, besides the root third and the fifth, are the ones that define these other types of scales or modes, right? So they're very versatile. That means they can be applied in a bunch of different settings. That's what triads are so essential because, generally speaking, if you can, if you know whether you can detect whether it needs to be major or minor, you're going to be able to use that right away in just about every kind of situation in popular guitar playing, certainly. So let's get right to this E. Now here's a diagram that also has the context of a 7-note scale, right? If you put the red and the blue dots together, okay? In this case, it happens to be an E Dorian scale. Probably heard of that. Many of you are very familiar with that and using it all the time, right? So this is all appealing to this kind of broad spectrum of where folks are at with things. So we're not going to discuss the nature of Dorian and so forth and its origins today. But that E minor triad lives inside there. The E, the minor third interval from the E. Okay, remember for A, our first interval was a major third. If you want to look at it as like numbers of frets or, how it works on the instrument. A minor third, 1 degree less than that. Spans 3 half steps instead of 4 half steps on any instrument. So root, minor third, or flat third you could say, and fifth. So the fifth doesn't have an alteration. It does in some types of triads, diminished or augmented, for example. But in just major and minor triads, it's called a perfect fifth. If I played A minor, I'd have to change the third, but the fifth would still be the E. Don't want to confuse anybody. So for our E minor, it's root, flat third, minor third, fifth, okay? Then just like we did for the A yesterday, and again, please go back and watch it if you didn't. We just go up, now start looking at the red dots. We just play those notes in sequential octaves, or up or down in octaves. Okay, now I've already gone out of the range of the diagram there, right? But hopefully, after you watched yesterday's video and you kind of messed around with that a little bit, we worked in 2 positions for the A, right? So I guess we are doing a little bit of review because our goal today is to get you playing over this 2-chord progression using only triads. And not because that's all we can do or we haven't graduated to the next level, but because just so you can experience the power of just using that skill. And you want to, again, practice that until you're super comfortable with it, right? Okay, so E minor triad. There's the chord. In this position, almost the same thing. Just got to add a couple of notes in there, if you're staying true to the task of playing all the chord tones in order, right? The triad tones. And then up here, here's another diagram for the E minor. And like we did with the A yesterday, you see the context of the notes around it. And again, that's that E Dorian scale. Put that on the back burner for now. But if you look within there, you can see that shape of that. And I dip down there to play that, the root, can't start on the sixth string right around in this region and play the E, right? Because the root's up here, the E's up there, okay? But, to kind of utilize that position, to its fullest, in a sense, at least for triads, I can reach down and play that fifth, that B there, okay? So our notes are E, G, B, root, third, fifth, right? And so you can see that there it starts on the fifth. I could slide up here, right? And once I get up here, it's the same shape as down here in the open position, right? We don't really need to write that out, right? Okay, don't avoid this open position either. I know sometimes it's kind of, I don't know, feels better when you play off in kind of a position up the deck where everything's sealed off and fretted. But you want to include all the zones of the neck, right? And it sounds cool down there, especially at E minor. One of the just naturally beautiful things that a guitar does by its nature. So there's a little, mapping game plan for the E minor. You want to go about rehearsing that in the same way we did with the A, okay? So now, and a couple of examples of that would be a little bit of the bouncing. And like we said about the fingering yesterday, had some nice comments about that. People were like, what a relief. I don't have to worry about the fingering, or obviously you want to do things that make sense the further you get into this, but for right now, yeah, don't worry about that. If I want to go, great, there's an E minor triad right there. Root, minor third, fifth, and then the root again. It looks so simple, but that's so important. And if you're getting into this, or even if you've been playing for quite a while and using this stuff, and you're still kind of stabbing at where those are, you got work to do, right? But here's how we're going to make it fun. Now, I don't have a backing track, and this is something that we can work on together in the comments too. I'll tell you what I can do is let this loop, here it is, it's just so simple. Okay, and I can let that run a little bit if you all want, just at the end or something, right? But if you've got a loop or some way to record something and play back with it, do it yourself, because there's even more benefits to that, okay? So now, A. E minor. Already there. I just doubled down on it, right? Remember this position from yesterday for the A? Again, I happened to land on an E. It's part of the A. It's also the root of the E. feel the repetition? Didn't get to it in time for the beat that time, but I made it work. Now that was a little bit, I didn't use just triad tones right there. We're going to let that slide. But you see what's happening. You can see where we're going, right? It's not because, like I said, it's not because all we can handle is three notes. It's that handling those three notes in a musical way is the scaffold, the foundation to the next thing. Don't skip it, right? If you need, we all need to be, you need to be able to make music with triads, okay? Then when we put the other stuff in there, the connective stuff and the passing tones and so on and so forth, other scale tones, other embellishments, it's going to be supported by this basic framework of moving around with triads, okay? Ultimately, it's a combination of a few different things, scales, chord tones, and so we got to take this one step at a time. It's the whole point of this, the way this challenge is put together. So you all let me know how this works. I'm going to let this just play out a little bit, but basically you're taking yesterday's routine, applying it to the E minor in the two areas down here, and well, I guess three if you get 2 for 1 out of that open. Right, do a little bouncing, do a little of that. Some of the stuff we did yesterday. Right? Don't worry if it's exactly what I just played or whatever, right? You take your time. I'm just giving you ideas, notions of how to do your own repetitive stuff, right? Then move around with those two chords. I'll let this play out. Let me know how this goes. Really excited how many folks are on board with this. Really appreciate your help and look forward to seeing you real soon for day 3.